Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to have a look at some opening traps together. So it's going to be a fun video. Let's start with some opening traps within the Sicilian defense. So first of all, the generic philosophy of this video and the following ones is that I won't talk about opening traps that will give you a very bad position if your opponent knows how to avoid them successfully. So the traps you will see in this lesson will give you a good position, or at least a decent position, even if your opponent avoids them. So we're going to see 4 traps within the Sicilian defense, and the first one is a trap for black against the Smith-Morra gambit. So what is it? E4, c5, the Sicilian defense, and white plays d4 with the idea of sacrificing a pawn in order to speed up the development. C takes d4, c3, that's the whole point. D takes c3, black accepts the gambit, and knight takes c3, e6. So far, perfectly good moves for both sides. Up to now, everything is fine. White wants to develop quickly to launch an attack on black's king, while black needs to develop his pieces to catch up on development. Very normal for a gambit opening. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, queen c7 for black. This last move is a good move because now the queen controls e5, and the point is that now black can develop the knight on f6 without being afraid of e5. So now that black controls e5, white cannot play the pawn to e5, at least for now. So the idea of this move is to play knight to f6 later on. Just a side note, on knight to b5 by white, I play queen b8. After this, white plays queen e2, knight f6, and castle short. So the idea of queen e2 is to allow rook f to d1 to put this rook on the d file. Very logical move. It also supports the move e4, e5. Now black sets the trap. Knight g4. It's a multi-purpose move because the threat is knight to d4 and knight to e5, followed by knight takes f3 and a mate to follow on h2. So the best move for white in this position is knight to b5, controlling d4 with tempo, and then h3. After queen b8, so knight b5, queen b8, black's position is good as the g4 knight can get to e5. But what happens if white plays h3 first? What do you think? What's the winning move for black? The winning move is, of course, knight to d4, because this move attacks the queen. And the point is that, of course, in a normal situation, white would simply play knight takes d4, but this is not possible as it would be immediately answered by queen h2 checkmate. If the knight moves out of the f3 square, then black is able to checkmate on h2. That's the first idea. So you see, if you manage to set the trap with black, good. If white knows it, it's still good. Second trap, we're going to look at a trap for white when black plays an early bishop b4. So e4, c5, knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and knight f6. This time, very logical move, attacking e4, very standard move. Then white develops logically the knight to c3 to protect e4, and now this is this slightly non-standard move. The idea, of course, is to pin this knight on c3 to renew the threat on the e4 pawn at the moment. So white pushes e5, knight d5, and then queen g4. You can see that this position is already very, very sharp. Queen g4 is a counterattack on the g7 pawn. The question is, how do you defend with white against the threat knight takes c3 that really seems a nasty threat? So in this position, black has played knight takes c3. What do you play now? Very simple. You play queen takes g7, black plays rook f8, and then the key move, quite hard to see, a3. Nice one. Because if I come back after b takes c3, capturing the knight, and I think it's the first move you are thinking about, first move that anyone thinks about, it's very bad because bishop takes c3, check, and capturing the a1 rook on the next move, so you loses a lot of material. And a3 is much better. So coming back a couple of moves, black cannot play knight takes c3, so black plays g6 here. And then the real trap happens. With white you can play knight db5, which is very strong, nothing wrong with this move, or you can set a trap with a3. a3 looks bad because actually black can play queen a5, pinning the pawn, and white cannot capture because of the rook on a1. Look. So you've played a3 with white, black has played queen a5, and it seems that black is perfectly fine. However, with white you're winning. How? And the winning move is the surprising a takes b4. Indeed, I said that it was not possible to capture on b4 because then black would capture on a1, the rook, but it was just to mislead you, because actually if you calculate a bit further, you see that after a takes b4, queen takes e1, white has knight b3, and suddenly you realize that this queen has just no square to go on the a file. Check by yourself, wherever you go here on the a file, this black queen is captured by a white piece on the next move, either by a knight or this f1 bishop. So this is a very nice trap, actually. And we're going to look at two more traps in the Sicilian defense. The next one is against the dragon variation of the Sicilian defense. It's good because looking at those traps, we see also a very good sample of the common lines in the Sicilian defense. So what is the dragon variation? e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and then knight f6. Very good move still. White has to protect this e4 pawn, so white plays knight to c3 and g6, bishop e3, and then black plays knight to g4. The point of this move is to threaten somehow this e3 bishop, because if black manages to capture, then black will get the bishop in exchange of a knight, which is usually a good exchange, and moreover this pawn structure will be a little bit wrecked. However, this last move from black was a mistake, and you have to punish black. And you have to punish black for doing this move. So find the best reply to this move. And the winning move here is bishop b5 check. And suddenly you realize that there is no good answer to this move. Because of course if you play knight d7, then this queen will capture on g4 on the next move. I'm not talking about queen d7 here. We agree it's not good. Knight to c6 would be interesting, but unfortunately after knight takes c6, black captures. This bishop will go on c6 to deliver a check and then capture the rook on a8. So black loses material here as well. So black then has bishop d7, but this is still very bad because after queen takes g4, white is up a piece. So completely winning advantage here. And it's time for the last opening trap. So e4, c5, knight f3, d6, same moves again, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, same variation again. And this is this time the Sicilian variation where black puts the knight on c6 instead of playing a6 like in the Najdorf, or g6 like in the dragon variation. White plays bishop c4 and black plays g6. And normally, instead of playing g6, black plays e6 to restrict the c4 bishop, but g6 in this position is already a mistake. So white plays knight takes c6, b takes c6, and then, very important move, e5. So the question is, what should black play in this position? Black's position is already very compromised. But what's the best way to deal with this? The best way to deal with this position with black is to play knight to g4, then white would push on e6, and then with black you answer with f5. So already very compromised structure, but position still playable. Now we imagine that black carelessly captures on e5, and this is actually very bad. It's a standard position in many tactical quizzes. So if you're playing a lot of tactical quizzes on the internet, you may see immediately what's the winning line for white. You see it? It's bishop takes f7, and after the king captures on f7, this queen on d8 is unprotected. So king takes f7, no choice, queen takes d8, and of course white is up a piece and winning in this position. That's all for the opening traps in the Sicilian defense. In the next video we will start to look at traps in the Queen's Gambit. Tell me if you like this video, if I should do more like that, and see you next time on the next video. Bye bye!